there's been a lot of stereotypes of senior exercise, around for a long time. The thought process was literally that you're going to hurt somebody or you're going to potentially kill them if they exert themselves as an older adult. But in the early 90s, some key research studies came out looking at like high intensity strength training in 90-year-olds in nursing homes. And they were like, hey, guess what? They got massively stronger. They got bigger. And then they were also up moving around more than ever before. Like they couldn't keep them in their rooms
Right.
after that. And like, so we started to rethink this whole approach and realizing, no, we have a lot of plasticity left at every age. We just have to tap into it. We have to challenge ourselves.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Strong by Design podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today on this week's special episode with a gentleman that I've actually been wanting to reach out to for better part of about 3 years since I've really started actively getting into some of his course material with the organization that he's co-founded. And so I'm really looking forward to talking with Dr. Cody Sipe today on the Strong by Design podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun just for me personally, somebody that I've been learning a lot from over the last few years, as I said. And I, oddly enough, attended one of his live conferences several years ago with a business partner of ours and really started to know what FAI was all about many, many years ago. And they've just continued to grow and create this amazing online course material that has really benefited me and probably just hundreds, if not thousands, of other health professionals. So just amazing stuff. So excited to have him on the podcast today. If you're an old listener of the show or a brand new listener, we welcome you to Strong by Design. We thank you so much for your support. Please be sure to share this episode with a friend or family member after you finish listening. And if today's episode, if the content is interesting to you, then certainly dive back in because we have hundreds and hundreds of past episodes on similar topics and really tackling all things mind, body, and spirit here on Strong by Design. So thank you for the support. We do appreciate you so much. So Dr. Cody Sipe has an extensive background in the area of fitness and health. He's been doing this work for over 20 years. We have a lot of similarities, actually, in some of the things that we've done. General manager of facilities and managing teams of people, trainers, working with clients face-to-face. These are things that I grew up wanting to do with my passion for fitness. And obviously, I imagine Cody from the same place of passion, wanting to help people and service people to be healthier, work with people face to face. And now he's helping health professionals reach people and teach people the right way. And so it's amazing. He's spent his career researching, developing, practicing the most effective training strategies. And, is the co-founder, as I said, of FAI, Functional Aging Institute. And it's amazing stuff, the brain balance connection and all of these other areas that I've talked about on the podcast in recent years. In 2005, he was honored with the IDEA Program Director of the Year Award, that's pretty fantastic. And he's presented internationally, served on boards and committees, and published articles for most of the top fitness organizations in the world. So, of course, I had to have him on the podcast. So, Cody, thank you so much for making time to be on Strong by Design.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think so. This is a topic that's just intrigued me for years now. Especially the more I've learned about it, the more it's just confirmed a lot of the things I kind of knew to be true. Just if I go back, 25 years ago working with clients, I knew there was something special about how movement and physical activity impacted our cognitive function. But of course, the science wasn't quite where it is today, and all of the different learning opportunities there are. This is preceded the internet, and it was at kind of the infancy, the late 90s as I was coming out of college, where a lot of this stuff started to really explode, and a lot of these kind of small small private facilities started to kind of take root. These personal training studios, they weren't really a thing if you go back far enough, but then they became really popular. And it's where a lot of people got to explore these different areas of wellness and start working with people in a more intimate setting. And it's just fabulous. So it sounds like that's kind of what you come from yourself.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I got interested in kind of health and fitness a long time ago, very early on. And I was originally planning on going to medical school, like a lot of, dumb students who think, yeah, I'll just be a doctor, right?
Right.
And realized that I really didn't want to be, and then turned to fitness because that was a thing that I really liked, coming from a sports background. And shortly thereafter, what I didn't realize kind of along the way, how quickly I was going to end up really loving working with older adults. I didn't anticipate that. And so that's what I've done for the past 30 years is really work with older adults. And you're right. Things have changed so much. I did a lecture for the ACSM meeting last year talking about what's happened over the past 30 years in the research and practice of working with older adults. And I mean, there's nothing short of an explosion, of what we know. And a big part of that, it kind of is this brain body connection that we're going to talk about, which stems from kind of what you alluded to, the mind body connection, right? With mind body started a long time ago, but that's kind of morphed into brain body because we know so much more about how strong that connection is. It's just fabulous.
Yeah, it is a good distinction, right? Because the mind and the brain, right? It's kind of two different concepts
Right.
of the same thing. It's a brain is an organ, just like other organs of the body, but the brain is something a little bit different too, in terms of its ability to kind of be your central control center, your computer that operates all the systems of the body. But it's impacted so much by what we do physically, and it really lights up. And obviously,
Yeah.
science has proven this quite a bit in recent decades about what the brain does when our bodies are in motion. It's completely different from when we're idle or when we're just reading and doing other things that have always been touted as like the most important things to do for our cognitive function. But I think there's been a lot of things kind of going the other direction. It's like, it's actually the more physically active you are, especially early in life, midlife, and later in life, the better your brain health is going to be long term. When did you and Dan kind of get together? When did this relationship occur and this idea for FAI, for the Functional Aging Institute, to take root?
Yeah, we were both getting our PhDs at Purdue University, and I happened to be also working there at the time. And we just met because we were both in the program together, and we were a year apart. But we had such an interest for older adults that we really connected, and we connected over a lot of personal things as well. So we became friends, and then just had this really crazy idea. Why don't we open a gym for older adults there by Purdue? There's a lot of retirees, a lot of older adults. Let's do something. And so we did it. And there weren't a lot of gyms really focused on that population at the time. There weren't a lot of models. Not a lot of people were really doing it. Specifically, they were training older adults, but this place was focused on the population. So we jumped in and we did it. And it was successful. But kind of along the journey, we were doing a lot of, teaching and at conferences and writing articles and that sort of stuff. I was a geek for the research. I'm really looking into the research. And I had the opportunity to work with several other organizations to write some content. But when you write for other organizations, you lose your content, right? You basically, it's gone. You're writing for them. They kind of take it and they own it. And I wasn't very comfortable with that. And so we had a business mentor friend of ours who actually is helping us with our gym. And he said, look, just start your own organization. I was like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do our own certification, but that's what we ended up doing. Like we said, the only way to really maintain control and to do it like we want to do it was to do it ourselves. And so that's what launched FAI and our first certification, the Functional Aging Specialist. And it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, when you were saying like you didn't realize how much joy and satisfaction you'd get from working with that older demographic. I found that to be true myself. I mean, I started as a trainer in my very early 20s, still in college, working with people. And I found that the people that took it the most seriously, and had obviously the means, the financial ability to continue, were the people kind of 50 plus. And even the people in their 60s and 70s who, just you could tell how life giving these moments were, spending time together, working on functional movement patterns, things that would really help them in their home, navigating just life in general, just basic everyday movement patterns that were mimicked in the gym with the training and putting people in vulnerable positions, and in the confidence that would build and how it would impact their mood and help them just become more social and feel like they had more purpose and all these things. And I'm like, wow, man, this is awesome. I so looked forward to those moments. Is that kind of, you and Dan were in alignment with that? Like it was just really a lot of joy and interest in helping those folks?
It was, and we just had so many stories of how much of an impact you have on a person's life and their well-being when they're older. You don't see that as much usually, when you're working with younger adults, so they might lose weight and feel better and look better and have confidence. That's all good. But when you're working with an older adult, like there's something definitely more meaningful to it because you are kind of at the later stages of life. And so you're trying to not only live longer, but you're trying to live better, and not just for yourself, but for your kids, your grandkids, everybody else. And so there's so much purpose there. And so when they come back in and tell you stories about what the things they were able to do, and they're so excited about it. Like, I was able to, actually reach down and get something off the floor and haven't been able to do that in a long time. Be like, it's just really awesome stuff. And very touching as well. So yeah, we kind of drew into that very quickly and really just kind of fed off that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember people saying like, "Oh, I can't get down on the floor. I'll never get back up."
Yep.
Okay, well, let's work to remedy that,
Yeah.
because you're going to find when you're at home, there might be a time where you have to be on the floor, or maybe you fall and you have to be able to get back up. And we need to work those muscles, Things get the body gets a little forgetful, but that's what's wonderful about the body is that once you're older, you've probably done all those movements before at some point in your life. It's just getting the body to remember what that feels like, what that looks like, and firing those nerves and those those muscles in that way. And there is so much gratification that comes from it. I have so many people in my mind that I worked with personally that I know aren't even here anymore. But it certainly made me feel like I was doing something that meant something. At least in one person's life, but usually you were benefiting the spouse, you were benefiting the kids, and there was so much gratitude there from all sides. In your line of work, what you do at FAI, you and Dan, what area of the aging fitness and health community that you're servicing, what area would you say captivates and captures the interest most of the health professionals that come to you guys? Is there an area that you feel like, wow, people are really loving this course material or this particular arena?
Yeah. So for quite a long time, it was really the power training that really got people excited because the literature was growing. There weren't very many people talking about it. I mean, going back to 2005 that you mentioned, one of my very first lectures I did at a fitness conference was on power training for older adults, and it's almost 20 years ago now.
Right.
And nobody was talking about it, but I mean, I was very interested in the literature, and so I've been speaking on it for the past 20 years. But now more and more people realize how important power is. So now lots of people are talking about power. So that's something really cool to see that change happen. But that always kind of very captivated people, and it still does. Dan and I we kind of joke about presenting because we're like, look, we, even though like you talk about power for 20 years, you can say the same thing that you said 20 years ago, and people are like, oh my gosh, it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
You're like, what? I said that 20 years ago. But it's because people are coming to the industry, they're new, they're just learning, or they're at different stages.
That's right.
So we say, well, you can't simplify things enough. It's very easy to overcomplicate stuff, right?
Yep.
Oh, I want to teach on this level.
Yep.
Well, no, people need to have it down here first. And so the power is one that's really captivated people, but also then more recently is really cognitive fitness and talking about fitness for the brain and the brain body connection and how to really stimulate cognition, avoid dementia and Alzheimer's and cognitive decline as we get older. So that's really starting to take off. And you're seeing a lot more people now talk about that in the industry as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes it's funny, right? It's information that we kind of know inside and out because we've been, training in it and learning about it and reading about it and teaching it and all these things. And for us, it becomes stale or old, but we fail to remember that, we're in a community where we're the expert and we're teaching others. They're coming to us for information that's still probably new, even though for us, it's getting, it's like, man, how many different ways can I say this? Well, you probably just keep saying it the same way because you got new people, coming into the fold. So it's, that's interesting. Yeah. So, as I said earlier, I've become fascinated about this relationship between the brain and our physical health and our physical movement. The healthy versus the unhealthy cognitive function, how our brain relates to all of the movements of the body and how it lights up. I seem to, every time I look at FAI over the last several years, I feel like there's more and more of these opportunities to learn in this area. Like, obviously, you just said that that's kind of a growing area. Are you guys just trying to come across different experts in this field and just add them into your course material?
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of webinars because webinars you're able to get people in that really have good expertise in a very specific area that augments kind of the basic information that you might have in a course or something. And so bringing all those people in to the fold has been great because even we learn stuff all the time. Even at the same topic you think somebody else presents it and they take a little different angle, a little bit different approach. They focus on different kind of principles or research. And so you're always learning. So it's awesome for us too, because we need to be continual students. Everybody always needs to be learning all the time. But yes, kind of in this area of the brain and the body connection, there's so many different approaches that you can take because you can address it from just the pure physical movement piece, but then you can also address it from more of the cognitive piece. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. So yeah, we're really trying to focus on that as a topic because people are wanting that. We're getting a lot of feedback. That's what they're wanting.
Yeah, and I love the blending. I remember I think it was in the brain health trainer course when it's teaching. Obviously, the brain obviously can kind of handle quite a lot at the same time, and it's good to challenge it with not just so you kind of have a physical movement with something that's more cognitive at the same time. So there's this kind of crossover that happens where people are maybe having to count or to do something with a ball while they're also doing something, on one leg or it's really cool, simple stuff that is very safe and can be quite frustrating for anybody, regardless of age. But it's amazing what it does for your brain. And it's really fun. It's like a brain teaser that with physical activity as well. One thing that you said earlier too that I really want to make a point in this conversation is that when people are getting older, people might think of someone in their 60s or 70s working out, and they immediately think of a man or a woman with probably like a little pink set of dumbbells, right? Just doing like some type of safe exercise so they don't hurt themselves. And, but that's not really what a lot of these training sessions look like. I must tell our listeners, or what you should be doing when you get old. And you said power training. I've seen some people later in life who can still move some weight around and are very, very strong. And if you're doing it correctly, you never need to get away from that stuff. I mean, this is what will save your life and extend your life, is training with good amount of resistance. Can you
Yes.
just kind of touch on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stereotypes of senior exercise, around for a long time. And a lot of that was based on kind of previously, the thought process was literally that you're going to hurt somebody or you're going to potentially kill them if they exert themselves as an older adult, even though we had all these other examples of people like Jack LaLanne, who was
I
out there
know.
doing all sorts of stuff.
I
We had examples, but like, no, they're the exception.
They're
Like, we can't.
anomalies. Yeah.
Yes, they're anomalies. You can't do that with people. But in the early 90s, some key research studies came out looking at like high intensity strength training in 90-year-olds in nursing homes. And they were like, hey, guess what? They got massively stronger, they got bigger, and then they were also up moving around more than ever before. Like, they couldn't keep them in their rooms
Right.
after that. And like, so we started to rethink this whole approach and realizing, no, we have a lot of plasticity left at every age. We just have to tap into it. We have to
Yep.
challenge ourselves. So an older adult is just like everybody else. If you don't challenge a specific aspects of fitness, it's not going to get better, right? So it might be that that pink dumbbell is challenging at first, but it's not going to stay challenging, right? You got to keep going. You have to keep progressing the overload. So that's all those same principles apply to older adults just like they do to younger populations. So yeah, it's got to be at least moderate and preferably vigorous.
Yeah, 100%. Neuroplasticity, it's our brain's ability to continually adapt, right? To grow and to learn new things. And obviously, when we're younger, we're on like overload, right? When we're young, we're complete sponges. We're doing everything for the first time. Our brain's going berserk, but that doesn't need to ever stop. And there's new things that you can do when you're older, or things you can just do in different ways to continue to challenge yourself. And yeah, I mean, I used to love watching my older clientele light up, doing something new, doing something for the first time, being frustrated and getting good at it. And building confidence. I mean, these are principles that we should never get away from, regardless of what age we are. There's an analogy I always like to make, because you said you couldn't get these 90-year-olds in the nursing homes to sit down once they started doing some of this training, right?
All right.
Because when you're moving, it gives you energy, right? Your body feeds off of this. And I always kind of form the analogy of how your body feels maybe after you take a nice brisk walk in the morning with your spouse, or walk your dog, and that kind of gets you going for the day. Like, you might get home, now you're cleaning the house, or you're doing something you've been putting off. Maybe you go and work out now because you've been up, you've been moving, you got blood flow, you're just cognitively, you're in a better mood, in a better state. And now you're go. The inverse happens when you're sitting idle for long periods of time. Think of how you feel when you're in a car for like 3 or 4 hours on a trip, and you're sitting there, and then you go to get out of the car. How do you feel? You feel like crap. You feel lethargic. You feel like you need a break. You feel like you want to move, or you need to move. And so it's just a perfect example of that does nothing good for you physically or mentally. And the body really just feeds off of that movement in our lives. And so the more you can move every day, multiple times a day, the better you're going to function cognitively. Now, I want you to touch on, Dr. Cody, how important it is to start to establish healthy exercise or physical activity patterns in your younger life, so that as you get older, you're able to kind of tap into those things, right? Because it can be harder if you've not done anything and you're 60. It can be hard to knock that rust off, but if you've been consistent up to that point, the maintenance mode can be a lot better.
Well, that it's really critical. So let's kind of look at the end of kind of later adulthood and kind of work ourselves back to that, because it's important to understand that the risk of cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, I mean, it's real and it's growing considerably among the older adult population. So we're kind of currently in this rapid growth of the aging population curve right here in the US and around the world. But the fastest growing group is really the 80, 85 plus group. And that's the group that also has the highest rates of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. I mean, it's expected that 1 out of 2 people over the age of 85 are going to have Alzheimer's disease. I mean, that's every other person over the age of 85, and that's the fastest growing population. So we're talking, all right, this is serious business, not just for the older adults we're working with, but for us, right? As we look to our future, we've got to do what we can to avoid that happening. Like, none of us want that to happen to ourselves.
Right.
And what the research is really showing is that there are some factors that we can't do anything about, right? Age is a factor we can't do anything about. Okay, as we get older, our risk goes up. We can't do anything about the fact that maybe we dropped out of high school. If you dropped out of high school, that would be a risk factor, right? So prior education is a risk factor. You can't do anything about your family history. And if you have the APOE4 gene, right, you can't do anything about that. But you can control almost everything else. And it's all back to lifestyle. Those are the major risk factors. And so when you look at early adulthood and middle adulthood, if you can build optimal health practices, you are almost bulletproofing yourself against cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. Now, it's never going to be 100%, right? Because there's other factors. But if you don't do that, then your risk goes up considerably after you get into your 60s and 70s. So it is absolutely key. We can look across the board. People that start early and maintain it are at the best possible position, right? Now, if you didn't do it, and now you're in middle age or later adulthood, starting that is still awesome, right? That's going to reduce your risk tremendously. But if you can start it early and maintain it, that's the sweet spot right there.
Yeah, that is the sweet spot. That's great. Thank you for clarifying that in a way that makes so much sense. Even for someone like myself, it's like, you know, you can get, you can go deep on stuff and start, you know, really reading up on things that are pretty complicated scenarios and stuff. But oftentimes it's this, the basics, the simplification of things that kind of just, oh, yeah, that's it. That's the sweet, the special sauce, if you will, is to find something that you enjoy doing that gets you up and moving, that's physically active, as walking in the woods or playing tennis or pickleball or whatever that activity is. And if you love it, you'll stick with it long term is the hope, and just never stop. I mean, just literally never stop doing it. I think of an older couple that lived next to a house I lived in off campus in college with my 2 brothers. And this couple, Ed and T short for Teresa, they'd been married for 60 plus years, and they still went and played tennis. I don't know if it was every day, but it was many times a week at the local tennis court right down the road. And these people had so much energy and were just always just fabulous, amazing people. And I really do attribute it. And their kids, I remember talking with their adult children that would say, yeah, I mean, he's been like this his whole life, Ed. I mean, and Teresa, but he would just say, my dad, you know, has always just been active, playing tennis, and he never stopped. And these folks had this long, amazing life with several grandchildren and got to participate in everyone else's life. And obviously, I think most of us listening would like that for ourselves, right? To be able to see our grandchildren grow up. And I think that's really what every time we go out and we move and we're active and we're exercising, that's what we're doing for ourselves. We're looking at life extension and a quality of life worth living, not sitting at home in our chair just watching, reruns of a TV show.
Well, I'll tell you, we see this come out in so many different ways, from the perspective of if you're active throughout your life, the benefits you reap later in life are amazing. And so you actually don't have to do as much later in life
Right.
to maintain your fitness and your health and your capabilities as if you didn't do anything throughout. And then you turn to fitness in your 60s and 70s, right? Now you're having to reverse course. You're having to grow that muscle and that strength and that aerobic capacity. And you've lost a lot of balance capabilities and neuroplasticity. We've got to really address that. But if you're active throughout your entire life, there's not as much work that's needed to maintain it in later life. And we see that from even like the blue zones. If you follow the blue zones data, most of these populations that are living really long, healthy lives are not formal exercisers, but they were dang active, right? I mean, they're labor and hobbies, and they're walking a lot, and they're carrying heavy stuff. They're doing chores. So they're very, very active. And so when they get later in life, now they're pretty good, right? They're not the strongest. They're not the fastest. They're not the fittest, but they're very independent and very healthy. And that's kind of what we all shoot for. So the more that you can do early in life and maintain it, then the more benefits you're going to have later in life.
Yeah. I got to believe there's some studies out there that I'm unfamiliar with that show maybe the lifestyles and the longevity of trades like being a farmer or anything that your job, your career is outside in nature, physically active, a lot of motion and movement of the body versus the desk job versus the kind of in a box, in a cubicle, sitting at a computer. Like, I got to imagine with all the other things aside, maybe you're still eating a crappy diet as a farmer or smoking or whatever, but your body's probably going to be able to handle those things far better because of all the other things that you are doing right in your day-to-day activities.
Yeah. That's what kills me about my day personally.
I know.
Right?
I'm the same way.
Yeah. I'm a professor, so I'm sitting in my office way too much. And you get into stuff and you look down and 3 hours have gone by and you're like, I'm not even doing what I'm telling everybody else to do. Don't sit for longer than an hour, get up and move, because even the research is really clear. You spend all your day sitting, you can go do the best workout for an hour you want. It still doesn't make up for those 8 hours of sitting.
100%.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy.
100%. Yeah, you're trying to undo that 1 hour, even if it's a super great hour of movement. It's really hard for that to outdo or undo all the damage of an 8-hour seated position at your computer.
Right.
That what it does to your spine and your hips. So wow, that's well said. Yeah, that's why I'm sure you make it a point. When you notice, dang, it's been 3 hours, I got to get up, I got to walk, I got to go pretend like need a drink of water or go walk. We'll go walk around our building out here.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
And get some sun and just, go walk and get coffee somewhere or something. I need to be up and moving. And I have no excuse. I have a 4,000 square foot gym outside my office door here. However, I do have that same guilt of sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week on the computer. So, and I imagine as you talked about, you brought it up with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and dementia, some of these other brain disorders or brain diseases. That's pretty frightening for people to think about. I know it is for me. I'm sure most of us, those people listening, know of someone in their life, whether it was a relative or a friend or a relative of a friend that has had some kind of cognitive issue later in life. what are some of the and you posed a stat earlier. You said 1 out of 2 people on the plus side of 85 are going to end up with Alzheimer's or some form of brain disease.
Mhm.
That is like truly alarming.
Yeah.
And especially as you said, we're going to see more and more people. People are living longer over that 80, 85 year range. Heck, I mean, FAI probably is going to have to add some more instructors to the to their to their list, because there's going to be so much work to do here for everybody. What are some of the stories that you've heard from health professionals that you guys have serviced over the last 10 plus years, where you've maybe heard some testimony about your course, your material, the things that you're doing or that they're doing with their clients that have maybe corrected some of these things? Have you heard of any of these stories of comebacks, maybe, or certainly stalling some of these issues from occurring?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've got a number of people, coaches that will come back with stories about their clients. When we do these live workshops, we invite stories, like, because we've got stories of our own of people that have made these comebacks and kind of turned their life around and kind of opened their eyes to their own potential longevity,
Yeah.
that they ain't given up on. Energy levels, like you were talking about, their ability to function. So we really invite a lot of those stories, and it's without fail. If you're working with older adults and you start to tap into some of these strategies and resources that we're teaching, they work. I mean, they're evidence-based approaches. And so you have all sorts of amazing stories from people who, can walk again, couldn't get out of a chair.
Yep.
And now you have to kind of lead them around. And now they're walking independently on their own and going on vacations. And I had one woman, she had an amazing story of very similar to what I was just talking about. And she ended up she started to she was getting so much better that she had now a plan of, all right, on my like 90th birthday, I'm going to go on a hot air balloon ride. And then like 91st, I'm going on a motorcycle ride, like on the back of a Harley or something. Like, she started to set all these incredible birthday milestones because she was like, hey, I realize I can do this now. Like, I had given up
Yep.
and now I'm back, and so those kinds of stories are just amazing. But you mentioned something about stemming the tide, and that's what's really challenging, is you've got to have a lot of trainers, a lot of health professionals who understand the power of these interventions and use them with their clients, right, in order to reverse all these problems that we're seeing. And I teach in a physical therapy program, and one of the issues in physical therapy when it comes to older adults is even physical therapists, a lot of them follow those same stereotypes of training older adults. And that is, so they treat the problem
Mm-hmm.
with kid gloves on because they don't want to hurt them,
Yeah.
and they don't push them, and they don't get them into an exercise routine. And they notice, yeah, okay, I was able to help their knee pain. They can still barely get out of a chair because they're so weak, but then we let them out the door, right? Instead of saying, oh my gosh, no, you can't leave yet. Or I got to get you into this program. My buddy Chris has a gym. You got to get into this gym. Like, you got to do this stuff. And we just haven't reached that, I'm going to say, tipping point, not only in society, but even in the health professions of, no, I've got to make sure that this person doesn't leave without addressing these things. I think we're seeing that change a little bit because of I'm going to say, exposure that some of the experts like Peter Attia and Gabrielle Lyon and others are giving to, muscle training and strength training at every single age and stage.
Yep.
And so that's just one way that I think we're starting to see things move. But when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, I think the problem is we're not moving fast enough. We've got to mobilize a lot of people really quickly who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s
Yep.
if we're going to head this thing off.
Yep.
And I just don't see that happening at a large scale like it should be, unfortunately.
Yeah, if I could speak to anybody, and and I say this really speaking from the heart, it we need to stop looking at play and movement and playground fun as something just for a kid to do. These are things that we need to take with us for the rest of our lives. In our 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, we need to still look at physical activity as play and as fun and as just joy. And because, I mean, that's what it is. And that doesn't change just because we got older. There's different ways to play, and maybe you have to tailor it and take your limitations into consideration to some degree, and it might look different how you play at 60 than how you played at 30. But that doesn't mean you need to stop altogether. And I think a lot of people give themselves permission as they get older. Well, that's something I did or I
Right.
used to do.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't see that for myself now, And I mean, I'm not that old. I turned 49 in a couple of weeks. I'm not, I still consider myself a pretty young guy,
Mhm.
but there's stuff that I don't do at the same level I did in my 20s. Of course I don't lift the same weights. I don't, but I still challenge myself with stuff that's even scary. I was at my niece's birthday party just days ago, and she did it at one of these tree hopper places where it's a ropes course,
Oh, yeah.
and
Mhm.
and you're harnessed in, and you start kind of low off the ground, and it's somewhat technical but kind of easy. And then as it gets a little more technical, you're up a little higher, and then by
Mhm.
the end of this thing, you've been going for 3 hours at this point. You're on the black diamond course, and you're 40 feet up in the trees, and you're just clipped onto one little thing, but you're doing balance stuff you never would have done in that first hour,
Yeah.
because you would have been maybe too timid, but you've gained that confidence, and by the end you're like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this crap, but I'm doing it, and
Yeah.
it's fun, and you feel so much pride in yourself for doing it. Now, people should never stop seeking that.
Yeah.
Like, you should always be seeking that. Now, it might look different. Maybe you're not doing that when you're 87, but there's a version of that for the 87-year-old that still challenges them and maybe gets their heart going a little bit, but then they can feel that pride afterwards that, wow, I did something pretty amazing for myself today, and I could still do it. That's such
Yeah.
a valuable thing.
It is, and we've kind of given that up, and it, it's it's kind of like that saying, get uh we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop
We stop
playing. It's
playing.
kind of that mentality. And what's interesting when it comes to thinking about just cognition and the brain specifically is how valuable play is to the brain.
Mm,
Because if you look at sports and you look at pickleball, that's play, right? You're playing,
yep.
but you're moving. There's coordination, there's eye-hand coordination and agility and balance and cardio and
Mm,
fun, and you're laughing and you're interacting and you're figuring out where to go. That's all very powerful for the brain.
mm-hmm.
And but yet people just don't do it. They look at their own physical limitations, but you can play pickleball at all sorts of different levels, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be vigorous. But yeah, we give up on the play way too early.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, just go sit at a playground somewhere and let the little ones inspire you a little bit, and it's always so enjoyable to go out and still feel like you can do a little bit of something, and participate. Participation's a big part of it, and all the connection with others, and like you said, the laughter and the joy. There's all these other side benefits that come with the physical activity aspect of
Yeah.
it. So,
One of the things that I am really excited about. So we've, talking about cognitive fitness and really getting into that really deeply and kind of looking at the research behind it. And there's a lot of now great technology that is really focused on brain training, that what we call kind of exergaming, right? So it's gamified kind of fitness. So where, yes, you're doing something physical, but you're also doing something for your brain at the same time. And so
mhm.
there's like the Blue Goji Cyber Cycle is a good example of this, right? You're on a recumbent bike and you're pedaling, but you're playing a game on a video screen,
Mm-hmm.
and you're interacting, like you have to use the handles up and down. You have to adjust the resistance. You have buttons to do things. And so you're in this game, and you're laughing, and you're trying to do your best, but you're also sweating, and it's
Yep.
really funny because I got my 19-year-old son. It came in, and I put him on the cyber cycle for the first time, and the game I put him on was basically like an off-road race. You're on trails, you're racing against bots, but you can pick up these boxes, and that gives you items. You can throw them at each other and whatnot, and then there's jumps and turns and all sorts of things. And he was sweating bullets, right? Because he wanted to win. He
Yeah.
wanted to win the game. And
Right.
so, but he's laughing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, see how much fun that was?"
Yeah.
And as an older adult, same thing. Like
Yep.
you can do that too. So I'm really excited about a lot of the gamified technology
Mm.
that brings that sense of play back to exercise or movement, but also really very specifically stimulates different functions of the brain at the same time. So we kind of have that scientific approach, but it's fun and it's accessible. And I think a lot of people, as they get older, just kind of like they back off of play. They look at exercise the same way. Oh, I can never do that, and that's effort, and I've never been an athletic person,
Right.
so I don't really do anything. Maybe I walk. But this is kind of an easy way to get moving without doing formal, sets and reps of weightlifting in a gym where people might be intimidated. So it's another entry point, I think, for people as well.
Yeah, it is a great entry point, and it isn't intimidating. Maybe the technological aspect of it can be intimidating for folks, but if you have somebody to show you, it's a lot of it's pretty darn simple once you kind
Yep.
of get going with it. But so much gratification from it, and I love just the look of on people's faces when they do something they didn't see themselves doing or didn't think they could do it well, and they find some success in it, and it's hard to get that response or that reaction.
Well,
Doing other things, like it's so authentic, so genuine, so fulfilling for people, and they, I used to just love seeing those same people show up for sessions multiple days a week, challenging them with new things, and them coming back with those stories about how I could really feel that the thing that we did here that really helped, because then I could reach up and I was getting stuff out of the closet. I mean, this is basic stuff, right? Reaching up in a closet and getting something off of a shelf in a closet without even thinking about it. And this same person maybe a few months ago had a frozen shoulder, or was in just unable to do stuff around the house. So it's so beneficial, and if you can make it fun along the way, I mean, that's the perfect storm. So that's awesome. What right now at FAI has you most excited? Is there something that's upcoming or something that you've just started that is really exciting for you guys?
Not necessarily. I mean, we're kind of just moving along like we always have, I guess you could say. Um, we a couple years ago we were acquired by International Sports Science Association,
Yep.
and so we've had to go through a big transition and getting everything moved over. So it's been a big administrative
Wow.
type nightmare. So we didn't really move forward in any new courses other than we have our Rain Fitness Coach certification course that we're really focused on right now. Again, because of the Alzheimer's epidemic that's
Mm.
kind of out there, and so that's one that I really like. I really love that course because it goes through a lot of the different types of exercise and their benefits for the brain. Because as you're talking about, our bodies love movement, our brains love movement. And so even basic aerobic and strength training is beneficial, but if you can do sports or you can do dual tasking exercises, those are even more beneficial for the brain. So we kind of break all that down and really give people a lot of tools that they can just go back and start using with their clients pretty much right away.
Yeah.
And what we know is that from survey after survey, cognitive decline is the biggest fear that older adults have. right? They
Yep.
fear it more than death or physical problems. I mean, I like to say nobody wants their bodies to outlast their minds, and
No.
that's exactly how they think of it, right? If I'm going to lose anything, I'd rather not be able to walk than not be able to think and recognize loved ones. So cognitive fitness is, man, it's at the forefront of people's concerns, and the older they get, the more of a concern it becomes. A lot of it because of the statistics that I was talking about. So really giving people tools to address that at all sorts of different levels, to me, is really valuable.
Yeah. Well, it's been a wonderful experience, certainly for me, over the last several years, just doing some of the courses through FAI, attending so many years ago a live event, and doing my brain health certification, brain health trainer certification a few years back. I did the Mastering Movement Disorders course recently. I have another foot one to do. And just because it's so, I always learn so much from it, inspires me, and you can never stop wanting to learn when you're in this profession, because there's always new information and new folks like yourself that are so well researched and so knowledgeable, and so it's just so awesome. I encourage anyone interested in learning more about what Cody and Dan are doing at FAI to go onto their website, functionalaginginstitute.com. If you're in the health field, if you're a fitness professional, health professional, there is something there for you. There's certifications and courses, and the webinars are fabulous. I mean, these are free. You you can sign up on their newsletter, and you get these great. I did one recently. I have another one to do. There's a great one coming up, I think, in early January. That's another brain-related one. Looking forward to attending that. So we just thank you so much for the good work that you guys are doing at FAI. It's so necessary. It really matters, and it's making a difference.
Thank you. Really appreciate that, and really appreciate what you're doing, because you're bringing a lot of people to the table, that giving exposure to them and getting their message out, that again really helps this industry grow and be better.
Oh, thank you so much, Cody. I appreciate that. Yeah, Strong by Design, we like to, really give some of these things a voice, and some of these amazing men and women and platforms that are out there, just to give them, one more opportunity to reach at least one more person. And, I talk about the ripple effect in life. If we might not be Joe Rogan numbers, you know what I mean, reaching millions of people with one episode, but the several hundred or thousand people that we reach with an episode creates some ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And those ripples matter, and they move out into the waters, overlapping and touching lots of people. So we're just grateful for every single listener that we have, and we just hope that some of them are taking this and sharing it and utilizing it in their life, and so it's benefiting so many folks. So listeners, we just thank you so much for finding our show, for coming back every single week. A new episode drops on Wednesday morning, and we are just loving what we're doing here on Strong by Design. We have several hosts of the show, as you know. And if you didn't know that, then you don't have to listen to me all the time. You can listen to Jared or Tanya or Mike, and we're going to have Joe Miller back in the fold as well, hosting. So we have lots of hosts on Strong by Design, and lots of topics: mind, body, and spirit. You are strong by design, created in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. We are grateful for you. God bless you. We'll talk with you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.